Hillary Clinton went to Capitol Hill today to talk about Benghazi. The Republicans were not happy with how things are going down there. And, you know, they had mocked her before saying, oh, she got the Benghazi flu and she didn't want to testify. So what happened? She testified today. So where was she? Oh, by the way, she had a blood clot and had to be taken to the hospital. That's why she didn't testify earlier. So there are no bounds of reason with the Republicans. So now, I'm sorry. Oh, that's an interesting Freudian slip. Perhaps foreshadowing. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton came in and first had teary testimony.
For me, this is not just a matter of policy, it's personal. I stood next to President Obama as the Marines carried those flag-draped caskets off the plane at Andrews. I put my arms around the mothers and fathers, the sisters and brothers, the sons and daughters, and the wives left alone to raise their children.
Now, that's true. At the same time, it doesn't mean that they didn't do anything wrong. You know, you could be broken up about it and still realize that there were errors made, etc. So I get that. Now, of course, their Republican reaction to this was not buying it. So here comes Senator Ron Johnson, and he's going to grill her.
The point I'm making is a very simple phone call to these individuals I think would have ascertained immediately that there was no protest prior to this. I mean, this attack started at 9:40 p.m. Benghazi time, and it was an assault. And I appreciate the fact that you called it an assault. But, I mean, I'm going back to then Ambassador Rice, 5 days later, going to the Sunday shows, and what I would say purposefully misleading the American public.
I just want to say that, you know, people have accused Ambassador Rice and the administration of, you know, misleading Americans. I can say, trying to be in the middle of this and understanding what was going on, nothing could be further from the truth.
Madam Secretary, do you disagree with me that a simple phone call to those evacuees to determine what happened wouldn't have ascertained immediately that there was no protest? I mean, that was a piece of information that could have been easily obtained.
Well, but Senator,
within hours, if not days. No. Again, we were misled that there was supposedly protests, and then something sprang out of that, an assault sprang out of that. And that was easily ascertained that was not the fact. And the American people could have known that within days, and they didn't know that.
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make? It is our job to figure out what happened and do everything we can to prevent it from ever happening again, Senator.
So, you know, it's interesting because Ron Johnson and others claim that she had planned to do this and blow up and, as Ron Johnson later called it, do theatrics. But watching it, I didn't get that sense. I'm totally open to that idea because that's how politicians usually are. You know, they plan it, hey, look, if somebody comes at me real strong, I'll come back at them and it'll look bad. But it seemed like she was trying to be patient, and then she's like, enough of this. Because if she had planned it, she wouldn't have said, what difference does it make, right? Because that's kind of strong language and probably not the direction you should go, although, of course, she clarified by saying it's important to ascertain what went wrong. But to her overall point, which is, did we say the right thing or the wrong thing immediately afterwards on a Sunday talk show? Well, that's just politics. And about that, she's right. Now, did this cow other senators into saying, hey, maybe we're overstepping our bounds here a little bit, that we should aggressively question her, but we're getting back into the minutia of politics of the election? Not really. Here comes John McCain.
There are many questions that are unanswered. And the answers, frankly, that you've given this morning are not satisfactory to me. What was the President's activities during that 7-hour period? On the anniversary of the worst attack in American history, September 11th, we didn't have Department of Defense forces available for 7 hours. I categorically reject your answer to Senator Johnson about, well, we didn't ask these survivors who were flown to Ramstein the next day. The American people deserve to know answers, and they certainly don't deserve false answers. And the answers that were given to the American people on September 15th by the ambassador of the United Nations were false.
Where was the president? Well, he wasn't reading a kid's book upside down, which is what George W. Bush was doing when we got hit on 9/11. Where we lost about 3,000 Americans. And by the way, it was ascertained later that Dick Cheney was actually giving the orders when the president could not be reached. Where was the president? Where was the president when he got a memo saying bin Laden determined to attack inside the United States? I have the answer for that. He was on his Crawford Ranch, where he stayed another month, the month right before September 11th. And now you're going to talk about 7 hours? You're going to talk about trying to pick people apart on, oh my God, where exactly was this person and that person, and try to play political games? Now, if you thought all that was bad, wait till you get a load of Rand Paul.
One of the things that disappointed me most about the original 9/11 was no one was fired. We spent trillions of dollars, but there were a lot of human errors. These are judgment errors, and the people who make judgment errors need to be replaced, fired, and no longer in a position of making these judgment calls. I think that ultimately with your leaving, you accept the culpability for the worst tragedy since 9/11, and I really mean that. Had I been president at the time, and I found that you did not read the cables from Benghazi, you did not read the cables from Ambassador Stevens, I would have relieved you of your post. I think it's inexcusable.
I love these tough guys. I would have done this, or I would have done that. I would have criticized the Republicans. Hey, you know, you had a long time to criticize the Republicans. The worst tragedy since 9/11. How about 9/11? How about the president? You're talking about president and what, relieved of duties? Here's who should have been relieved of his duty and who should have been fired after the actual 9/11. President George W. Bush. He told the CIA guy who gave him the memo saying bin Laden determined to attack inside the United States, he said, all right, you covered your ass, go home. You want to talk about relieved of duty? That's the guy who should have been relieved of duty. We had a general on the ground saying afterwards, we're in Afghanistan, he says, I've got bin Laden cornered in Tora Bora. Can I send in my 5,000 troops that I've got nearby to go pursue him? Rumsfeld, Cheney, Bush say no. Now you got to talk about Benghazi. Talk about Benghazi and how all of a sudden the Republicans care about, oh my God, why didn't you do something to protect national security? Please. And by the way, I think there was a slightly larger tragedy after 9/11. For example, when we started that Iraq war that killed 4,486 Americans. And to what purpose? To make Iran stronger now? Yeah, that was a brilliant move. Did anybody get relieved of their duty under those circumstances? And how about the intelligence? They're complaining about the intelligence here, right? Although, of course, they're not bringing the CIA in because they love the CIA. They're bringing Hillary Clinton to yell at her, right? Gee, I wonder if it might have something to do with the fact that she might be running against Republicans in 2016. Probably not. Rand Paul, by the way, might be one of the people running against her. Would that have something to do with it? Oh, probably not. So you want to talk about intelligence? How about George Tenet? The guy who got the weapons of mass destruction wrong at the CIA, that did not see 9/11 coming. The head of the CIA, you know what George Bush gave him in 2004? A Presidential Medal of Freedom. You guys screw up and you give yourselves a medal, and then you have Benghazi and these guys like, oh my God, it's the greatest tragedy. Can you believe somebody didn't do anything about it? You frauds, you hypocrites. And by the way, who's actually at fault? Yeah, we actually had security problems. The House Republicans cut literally embassy security funding. They cut $128 million in 2011 and $331 million in 2012. Oh, right, that 2012 where the Benghazi attack happened and we did not have enough security at our consulate. You guys are the ones who cut the funding for security. And now you're going to turn around and blame others. Please, this is politics at its worst.